Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Today we welcome a special guest from over in Adelaide. We welcome Paul, who's a board member of Blockchain Australia, the president of Adelaide Blockchain. How you going, Paul?
I'm doing fantastic. How you doing, Alex?
Really well, thanks. I'm looking forward to diving in and talking about the ADC Forum
hmm
Global Blockchain Summit. That's a bit of a mouthful, mate, but it was a very
Yeah,
successful event. Plenty of
it
news to
was.
come out of it. So,
Yes.
for those that haven't followed your work, how'd you get into blockchain quickly?
Yeah, so in 2013, I bought Bitcoin by just going through the internet and learning more about it. I kind of forgot about it. I didn't understand what blockchain was. Ethereum popped along in 2015, 2016. And then I learned what blockchain was, and I kind of freaked out a bit of a life-changing moment. Kind of got obsessed after that, did a lot of trading. But by 2017, I was like, I really want to contribute to the space in some tangible way. And I did a bit of coding, a bit of development, and then I started a student-run organization called Adelaide Blockchain, which is pretty much just to educate and engage the youth in Adelaide because it didn't really exist a year and a half ago. So my focus has been entirely on getting as many people as possible to these events, to a protocol tour, tours and stuff like that, and workshops and bootcamps and hackathons to get people to actually think about the technology. So that's been my focus. Last year, I just traveled to probably 7 different countries all across the world, to the economy, into New York for Consensus and San Francisco to get context. And now I'm more focusing on just buckling down and getting things happening in Adelaide. So this conference that popped up has been a really great catalyst for the ecosystem here.
Yeah, and there was an all-star lineup, so we'll get you to talk about a
Yeah,
few of the people there. I know you weren't able to get Mike Novogratz in the end, and a few people were asking what happened
yeah,
there.
yeah. Well, unfortunate, I guess. They had kind of limited time to get the conference happening, and they were trying to get as many speakers in as possible. And sometimes in those processes, you have to maybe make a leap of faith in assuming that these people are going to come down. And look, you can get 50 people, speaking there, and they got Patrick Byrne down and all these big people down. And just for some reason, that particular contact wasn't the contact I thought it was. And it just happens, right? I mean, you move on and you make it happen. So
Yeah.
unfortunate. Would have been amazing, obviously, but it is what it is.
So who were some of the better speakers, and what were some of the, I guess, highlights from those speakers?
I would say Patrick Byrne in particular, he did a keynote for the gala dinner. He did an incredible piece on why blockchain is important, his priest in the industry. So he was saying in 2012, he was one of the first businesses to actually accept Bitcoin for payment, and then he released T0, which is focused on building blockchain products for supply chains and for the stock market and for these other areas. And so he provided a very insightful talk on kind of everything that T0 is doing. And he also did a bit of a shield on Ravencoin, how he thought it was a super compelling blockchain. Blockchain has popped out only in the last year. So it's quite interesting to me because you think about Bitcoin, starts in 2008, it gets that kind of fully decentralized network effects. And you might think, well, is it possible for new protocols to pop up that didn't do an ICO, they didn't have all these kind of pre-mined things and just become fully decentralized at the beginning? And he was just saying how it's so compelling that Ravencoin is kind of that thing, right? It's kind of pretty rare in the space. So he was talking about that, and
Yeah, I really like
Ravencoin's gone up a
Ravencoin.
bit.
I really
Yeah,
like Ravencoin, and as you say, it's a fork of sorts of Bitcoin, and
yeah,
to be able to a project like that that's decentralized spring up in this environment when everyone's so
yeah,
focused on STOs and the new big thing. I'm still a
yeah,
little bit bullish on utilities and decentralized
yeah.
projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely right. And then after that, Ravencoin's gone up a fair bit. I mean, who knows what that means after his keynote, but it's interesting.
Yeah, I also heard the gala dinner wasn't without a bit of controversy. There was a burlesque dancer, and some newspapers
Yes.
reported that as a stripper at the gala dinner. So what happened there?
Yes. So it was some people have gone either way on it, saying people thinking that that performance is detracting from the success of the conference. Some people are saying it's highlighting certain issues in the industry. One point I want to make is that either side probably have valid points, but we should not let that detract our attention from the success of the conference we'll go into later. From an organized perspective, in my conversation has been that like you can't have oversight on everything. And people perform the way they do. She improvises her performances, and they can only do so much. So it is what it is.
Yeah, okay. Well, we might move on from that one. So the Blockchain Innovation Challenge winners, I know there was a drone company, and supply chain is another thing we've been really bullish on. There was a wine
Yep.
company. So do you want to talk about those two a little bit?
Yeah, I was actually a finalist as well. I didn't win, unfortunately. But the drone company focused on proof location products and pitched really well. They've been building a location type product that's not been blockchain related in the last year. Now they kind of pivoted after this blockchain innovation challenge. So that's been really good. And so they're like 23-year-olds, 22-year-olds, super successful. They won a 2017 tech challenge as well. So they've had a precedent of, winning pitching challenges. And the wine guys, I think one of the co-founders owns a winery in Morphettvale, or was Barossa Valley, and he has customers in China. And so basically, they wanted to ensure that they can prove their provenance of their wine in China without being scanned and being able to people to copy their bottles, right? So yeah. I think from a theme point of view, the government was like, and the judges were like, this really ties into what South Australia offers. Yeah. So and the drones with defense and stuff like that. So good on them.
Was the drone company, is their name Soar, or am I thinking of a different project in Australia?
No, the name is Right Technologies. Okay. It's only in the last 8 months.
Interesting, because I have read about some other ones, and I thought they were Australian as well. So it's good to know that space is taking off.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So the other things I wanted to talk about were some investment that was won. So $70,000 for education and workshops.
Correct. So Kingsland University School of Blockchain were a prominent feature in the conference, and a few people came down and working with the state government and how people are mentioning education is so important in the space still. I mean, I do some consulting work, and you work with business, and it's like, that they're sitting on a gold mine, but you have to do this 3-month education piece to get them over the line to actually understand what you're saying. Yeah. That was a major conversation point. So what they've done is offer $70,000 in scholarships for workshops for business people and for students to also come down, not only from a blockchain applied perspective, but also from a developer perspective. So I think they're running those workshops in May, I think. So I mean, it's a lot of money, and I think that we'll be helping them as well, connecting to business. So good to get more education happening.
Yeah, we've seen the Advanced Diploma of Applied Blockchain pop up in Australia now. We've had lots of people subscribe through the channel to their course as well, so it's great to see these educational things come out. Now, you guys were there for the Binance announcement for Shift and for Salt. It's an interesting one as well. I know Salt's come back from the dead in many ways for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, they got delisted in Binance recently. I guess that was unfortunate. Binance is one of the biggest volume exchange. But they're still kicking. It seems like they came down. They're still making it happen. So it doesn't seem like the two-phase, which is a good thing. Binance shouldn't be the end all. So Lot 14 popped up. The government initiative. They want to try to make a massive tech hub right next to the city. And through conversations with government, they've decided, well, maybe we'll get a HQ there. And then Binance, with their Binance Lite release in the last week, the first employee for that product is in Adelaide. And they're looking to get a potentially headquarters in Lot 14 as well, maybe employ another person, and also shift the identity protocol. I'm also thinking to have an HQ in Lot 14, which is absolutely fantastic, because the more blockchain presence there is in Adelaide, the better my job is in actually engaging students in all the universities. So the more leadership, the better. So I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, and it has been definitely sort of centres in Melbourne and Sydney, definitely Brisbane, and now we're seeing one in Adelaide, because I know Perth's pretty favourable as well. And we've got a good little community down in Tassie, so it's great to see that every state is starting to get covered. To talk about IBM, Thomas Food, and the Drake Supermarkets announcement?
Yeah, so I think it's been in the works for the last 6 to 8 months now. And basically got into a really big agreement now and doing a pilot to be able to pretty much track beef. So that's a really good boon for South Australia to get a really big supply chain pilot going through with IBM, and hopefully it's successful. And then, if it all works, they can start spreading out to other industries. So it's fantastic. More leadership, right? It's kind of a similar thing to how there was voting for, I think, the Fishery Party for elections. So these type of initiatives in using blockchain in different industries in South Australia is absolutely fantastic, and it's what is needed to showcase the capability in leveraging new tech, right? So
Oh yeah, and when we talk about supply chain, you can literally almost talk about anything, and it has some need for
Yeah.
provenance or quality and that sort of thing. So very
Yeah.
exciting for us, and we've followed. Obviously, AgriChain has been one that we've followed, but there's plenty
Yeah.
of great projects doing this.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The,
VChain.
the
Yeah.
the final big announcement was Blockchain Australia and ADCA merging. So obviously, we're both board members of
Yes.
Blockchain Australia. ADCA is
Yes.
sort of dealing with the top end of town in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways. We're trying to be more
Mm-hmm.
grassroots. We now get to
Mm-hmm.
come together as one organisation, one
Yeah.
industry body, which is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about it all?
I think it's a long time coming. I think people need to come together and form one association. You can't have 3, 4 associations trying to do similar things. There's always going to be overlap, and it's a waste of time, right? So having ADCA, they've built this precedent and built the capability of accessing the high end of government and enterprise, and it's fantastic. But the grassroots has kind of been left out a little bit within the representation of an association, right? There's obviously things happening in every single state, but there hasn't been the representation. So to have that kind of middle ground and interface between enterprise, government, and the grassroots is super fantastic. What I also want to see, and I've been working with Nick, the CEO of ADCA right now, to see how we can build some type of capability to engage students directly across Australia. So, you know, I've pretty much got everything covered in Adelaide. I've got my friend Daniel Barr from Sydney who runs Bitforward. He's connected with the student clubs there. So I'm working with Nick and you know, in the next month with Blockchain Australia to build that capability or some way of engaging all these students all across Australia to eventually get under some type of Blockchain Australia student association, or who knows what it is, right? So we can engage thousands of people in talent. So I think if we have the high level, the middle ground of interface between grassroots and enterprise, and then we can just start directly interfacing with talent, then we're going to have something that's probably pretty unprecedented in the world. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, definitely. We'll be big supporters of that. And as you say, we're trying to drive Blockchain Australia membership. So having a student membership, I think, just makes sense. The other thing I was just going to say is when I was in the Treasury meeting the other day and we had the ATO, ASIC, Treasury there, and all these industry leaders, it became very apparent that it's just so disconnected. There's nowhere or one person you can go to ask about what's happening, what do you think of this? So the fact that they can have that one touch point now as an industry body, and hopefully we can all present the different arguments and help them form good regulation, because that's one thing that is still probably a lot of uncertainty for businesses, and some people think the blockchain is still a dirty word. I'm sure you get that when you talk to people.
I was in a meeting last week, and it was for a ticketing company, and the guy was super great, but when you have no context in blockchain, the only context you do have is Bitcoin and money laundering. That's a massive barrier to entry, and it's a massive education piece. And it, you know, we are fully obsessed in this and immersed in this, and we just think everyone gets it. And then you go out and you're just like, wow, like I'm kind of in a bubble. Like my reality ain't no reality. Like, you know, there's so much out there that don't know what's going on. So it was a bit of an eye opener, to be honest. In that last meeting, I was like, wow, like there's a lot. We've got a long way to go.
And I think that's important for people, whether you're an investor or working in the industry, that outside perception, the public perception is probably that Bitcoin was this thing that came along and is a bubble. And that's all it is to them. And that's a bit like the internet in the early days. And then they're going to realize, hold on, there's this whole other industry that's going to emerge. Yeah,
absolutely. I think a key point to this is that Australia in general has always shown leadership in regulation and policy, and maybe lag in actually executing that in the industry to incentivize businesses to take advantage of that. But I think it's really important right now for government to say, look, maybe we don't know everything, but let's take a stance on it. Let the industry decide, you know, how to interface with it, and be comfortable with potentially making a mistake. I'm not gonna say failure, but making a mistake and kind of changing their stance. Because if they just go, well, we don't know, and we're not gonna have any stance in 10 years, then there's no way for them to innovate in their policy and regulation, right? So
sandboxing is one of those things that other countries have done, and one of the things that we did discuss was, let's see how this plays out for the next year or two, because it evolves so fast. There's no point putting regulation in place, and if you over-regulate them, we're already seeing a lot of the good startups go over to Southeast Asia. Was one that we covered the other day. And to be honest, in Australia, if we had stamped out the BitConnect and USI Text, there wasn't a lot of scams and a lot of terrible ICOs when you look at China, where there was just hundreds and hundreds. So I think the consumer protection and other laws, we haven't done a bad job in Australia.
Yeah, I completely agree.
So South Australian government, as you've touched on a couple of times, have been getting behind this. So how would you, I guess, summarise all the support and where they see this going, their vision?
Yeah. So in the last 12 months, Steve Marshall's been in government, and to be honest, I'm completely gobsmacked at the level of leadership. You know, like, one thing to say the word blockchain in a speech, and another thing is for a premier to be there for 3 days straight, morning and night, and go to the dinners and then the after party, right? And then be so personal and accessible to the entrepreneurs who are trying to make stuff happen. You know, that type of leadership really invigorates my energy, because I've been, you know, working so hard the last 2 years to get talent engaged and then engaged into the international community. But it's kind of like, if there's no type of leadership, or there's not, you know, big tech right next door to you, like, what's the incentive for you to keep on going if people aren't supporting you? And when I see that, I'm just like, he gets it. He wants to support entrepreneurs. He wants to support the industry here. And for me, like, it's so great, because I got people around me as well that see that and they go, well, that's what we need. That's the thing that we need to stay here and make stuff happen, right? So yeah. Incredible.
Very similar for us. And I think there was one point in crypto winter there where there wasn't a lot happening, and we generally thought about cutting back from doing a video every day of the week and whatnot. Whereas now we could do 20 videos a week. There is so much happening, as you see in our weekly wrap-up, guys. But I definitely think that the bear market, the crypto winter, in terms of development, is behind us. Now, that doesn't mean the price can't go down a little bit more. Who knows? But there's just so much innovation happening.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like, you know, we're in a bear market right now, but people still think this is going to happen, right? And the fact that government wants to push it is fantastic. I can use that. I can use that.
So any final thoughts for us today, Paul? I'll put the links in the description for people to follow your work and all that, but any key takeaways for people?
I guess the key takeaway from a South Australia point of view is that, you know, Steve Marshall is going to govern for the next three years, and they're going to keep on pushing. So I think that even though maybe Adelaide's late to the game from across Australia with regards to the blockchain tech, I think things can move quite quickly from every level, from top down to grassroots to student engagement. So I think that we have almost like a competitive advantage in actually growing the industry in blockchain in Adelaide, and they contribute nationally. So another thing, once again, the leadership that the South Australian government is providing, I think is almost unprecedented, maybe in Australia, and there might be some synergies elsewhere. So I think that's been absolutely fascinating. And also just the amount of delegates and the amount of incredible people that came down to the conference really goes to show to me that, you know, there's a lot of people really focusing on this from the top down, even from a regulation standpoint, people from traditional industries. So things are happening, and if you're simmering on it, I think it's time to kind of get in, because the next 5 years is going to be absolutely crazy. So, our
Adelaide meetup was one of my favorites as well. It was 18 months or so ago now, but we'll definitely look to get back. And one of the things we want to develop is a community fund where we can put money towards going and doing these more often and getting out and about. So thanks so much for joining us today, mate. And as I said, I'll put the links in the description below.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Cheers, guys.
See you, mate.